Okay, this is module, I think, 8, chapter 12. I am going to do questions 1, 3, and 4. So, first of all, my definition of stress, I think of stress as worry. So, if I'm feeling stressed, it's usually because there are more things to do than I feel like I'm able to handle. So, maybe also there are things happening that are outside of my control, but that I wish were not happening. So the text defines stress as a mental or physical strain or tension that produces reactions inside your body and disturb how your body normally functions. So what the book calls strain is what I refer to as worry, or how it feels to me. I feel like those are pretty similar. And when I think of the word strain, I kind of get the picture of carrying a heavy load of something, and that you're under stress. So you don't have to realize, or you don't have to realize how, or you don't actually realize how free and easy you felt before until you are under the strain. And then you kind of like want to go back to how it was. So some stressors are things that cause the stress. So it could be your work schedule, it could be an angry customer, a not a good manager. The book mentions hyper and hypostress as well as distress and eustress. Hyperstress is when someone experiences greater than normal stress, and hypo is less than normal amounts of stress. So then distress is when stress is causing problems, and eustress is when the stress is pleasant. This can be a bit confusing to me. So, the book explains that a form of hypostress could be like a job that isn't challenging or it's just too simple. In my mind, that in itself is a stress, because then you're going to lack motivation and you're probably going to want, a different job. So, the book also mentions several different sources of stressors, which fall into categories like psychological, physical, behavioral, and communicative. I can identify stress in my own life from those different categories. For instance, I experience psychological stress when I know I have a paper or a project due and I don't feel like I have enough time to prepare, or I don't feel that I've got a good enough grasp on the information to do a good job. Physical stress can happen if I'm not getting enough sleep, if I've been sitting at my desk all day, working or doing school and not able to move around, get good blood flow, get sunshine. So, different kinds of physical things that can cause stress. Behavioral stress, I thought of like when you're busy, you have a bunch of different places to be, kids to get in different locations, like really stressful, how to strategize getting people to the right place. Um, and then the last one was communicative. Let's see, finding my spot here. So I have communicative stress, like, for example, when I have to be really positive at work toward a customer or a client who I'm working with. So I'm trying to be really supportive and positive, even though in my mind they've made like a choice to give up on a goal that they had. And I feel like they could have pushed further, or I feel like they were on the right track and then they just let something little get them off track. And so, not to convey that, like that causes a stress to me because I am trying to stay positive even though I'm disappointed. Um, so interventions, the book mentions stress management training, employee assistance programs, and socio-technical interventions. I think it is important to find a way to deal with your stress. It's very important to have healthy habits on a day-to-day basis so that when stress does come, you're better prepared for it, better prepared to handle it, and learning techniques that help you deal with it. A lot of it is self-talk, perception. The book talked about, how one person can perceive a situation as very stressful and another person, it's really no big deal. So a lot of that goes on in our mind, and we can, learn to talk to ourselves in a way that we can be more positive about the things that are happening so we don't get, bogged down with long-term stress. Then on to conflict. So the best way to handle conflict, I think, is clear through collaboration. In order to collaborate well, you really need to be an effective communicator. You also need to be a good listener, careful listener, and a creative thinker. I really had a hard time kind of thinking of collaboration without uh, any sort of the other elements like compromise or accommodation. So maybe it is possible, but I am prone to compromise and accommodation. And so I guess it's really interwoven into my definition of good conflict management, where even in collaboration, somebody might be giving up something or making, some kind of a accommodation for the other. I don't know, but that was my perception there. And then in negotiation, so some of the key tips for being a good negotiator. First of all, everyone who's involved needs to communicate well. You need to find common ground. That's kind of one of the main things you're doing. And then you're working to reach a point of reconciliation and compromise. So I already, of course, recognize that communication is important. Good communication, effective communication. It's always important, especially when there are differences of opinion and when there are real, tangible things to either gain or lose. For me, going forward, I see a need to be a better listener in a negotiation situation, to be clear about what the other person wants. Sometimes you need to dig a bit to get to the core of what they want. And then, then you're working toward finding that common ground. So being clear about what I want is also important. And I think then most important then would be that common ground part. So usually digging deep enough, you're going to find something that you and the other person agree on. For, temporarily setting aside your differences, getting to the core of what you agree on, and then slowly building back and finding ways that, you can make the two different pictures kind of go together. So where those differences lie is where your work at reconciling and negotiating will be. So thanks.